Over the past week, Australians have felt solidarity with those fighting for their homes or packing their children into the car as the flames of the fires fan closer and closer to their suburb. Our hearts have gone out to the families, the 259 families who've lost their homes, or worse, their loved ones. 4 people have lost their lives this week, and 6 have died since the start of the bushfire season in June. There's just horrific stories, like the man who tried to escape the blaze but was trapped in his car by a fallen tree and died. Firefighters are exhausted from being on the front line, keeping back the full force of the blaze while bearing the scorching responsibility of protecting lives and livelihoods. Just like the smoke has blanketed the whole of Sydney, the donations and empathy for those on the front line has stretched just as wide. And while the fires have brought out the very best in human nature, it has brought out the very worst of our politicians. It's times like this that cement the public's dislike and disdain for the political class. The stupidity arose in equal ferocity on both sides of the political spectrum. You had Larissa Waters this week nodding along with an idiotic proposition that firefighters were more likely to abuse their wives after a disaster. And there was the Greens and other Greens, Jordan Steele, who said the coalition government were arsonists for their lack of action on climate change. And then the Nationals were just as bad. There was the leader, Michael McCormack, who said that anyone linking the fires to climate change was a raving inner-city lunatic. And Barnaby Joyce said that 2 people who died in the fires most likely voted Greens. It's appalling to use the bushfires to further their own political agenda, especially while the thick smoke still blankets the city and families are fearing the worst. Most of those firing up on this debate are not experts. They do not know the facts. Now, I'm no expert on what has caused the bushfires either, but I'm a journalist, and I've asked the Rural Fire Service in New South Wales and the New South Wales Police about the cause of the fires so far. And here's what we know. It's thought that up to 12 fires or more, 12 bushfires, may have been deliberately lit by arsonists, and investigations are continuing. So far, 10 people have been charged for arson across the state. Other fires are believed to have been started by lightning strikes or electricity cables. Here's what the New South Wales RFS boss told 2GB today.
Unbelievably, you got 10 people charged with lighting fires.
Yeah, look, it's just, it defies belief, really, doesn't it, John, that people in these conditions with all the, the count so far just from these last week is 259 homes lost. And if you add to that the 106 that we lost earlier in the fire season, some morons that think it's a great idea to do that.
There also seems to have been some mismanagement of bushland, which has exacerbated the ferocity of the fires. The New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro has pointed out that fuel, and that's the branches, the undergrowth, the leaves on the floor of the bushland, has not been adequately burnt back. His comments have been backed up by the former New South Wales Fire Commissioner Greg Mullins, whose list of demands included fuel reduction and fire mitigation programs. And it's an issue I'm going to ask the New South Wales Environment Minister Matt Keane about shortly. He's on the program. But Greg Mullins' own attempts to use the fires to further the cause that he backs, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's paid for by this group as well, the Climate Council group, have been divisive. And this is disappointing from a respected community leader. He's a former fire chief who is a Labor appointee, and he's expressed outrage that he couldn't get a meeting with the Prime Minister during the caretaker period of government. But the relevant minister, Angus Taylor, says he actually offered Greg Mullins a meeting, which was declined. The politicisation of the fires this week from all sides, and in many cases from hundreds of kilometres away from the front line, has just brought out the worst in human nature. Just like the community spirit of those battling in the coalface has brought out the best of the Australian spirit.